Good morning, world. I'm Steve Rao, the host of Pod TV's World Edition, soon to be a part of the Roku network. And I'm honored today to welcome you from the All-America city of Morrisville in the state of North Carolina, the United States of America. Wherever you are watching in the world, we welcome you to our show, where we talk about global affairs, innovation, and continue our analysis of the impact the COVID pandemic is having on our political system in the United States, around the world, the economy, and what the future of a post-COVID world and economy will look like for many of us. Today, the show and my monologue will be focused on the one-year anniversary of the presidency of Joseph R. Biden, the 46th president of the United States of America. A year ago, yesterday, he was sworn in to the presidency, and like the 45 presidents before him, he took the oath of office that he would preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States to the best of his ability. At the time, Biden came in to the White House with a sense of energy and optimism and competence that the American people wanted in their commander-in-chief. He said he wanted to end the uncivil war that America had been waging under the Trump presidency. But 1 year later, it seems that a series of setbacks at home and abroad have let this president have the lowest approval ratings of any modern-day president in the last 20 years, hovering around 41 to 42%. Before he was sworn in, there was an insurrection on the Capitol, so there was already evidence of the strong division and polarization in our country. Now, let's not forget that President Biden has had his share of successes. When he was sworn in, he promised a vaccination campaign, and he delivered. By June of this year, of 2021, of last year, he had 65% of the American people at least with one dose of the vaccine. He's been quicker to bring in funding when necessary, passing the CARES Act, providing PPP money to businesses and loans, and the American Rescue Plan, offering child tax credits, investments in environment, clean energy, renewable energy, but also his greatest achievement, a bipartisan $1.5 trillion infrastructure bill, which invested in our roads, bridges, broadband, and was a huge major achievement for this president. He's also been quicker to appoint federal judges than many of his predecessors. But at the same time, he's had a set of political challenges, an inability to get the Build Back Better plan through, as Senator Manchin and Senator Sinema have opposed him on that, along with many of the Republicans. His promise to the American people of voting rights legislation is now doomed to fail because of efforts being made to uphold the filibuster. The president is saying that he is going to give it another shot, and he's meeting with Senator Manchin in a few weeks to talk about how they make that happen. Meanwhile, as he continues those promises, Republican-led legislatures are doing everything they can to change the outcomes of elections so they can affect the results in 2022 and in 2024. And let's not forget that former President Trump is still talking about conspiracy theories, and many of his allies, including Lindsey Graham, senator from South Carolina, are saying that the election was stolen, that the election was rigged. This has led to almost half the country still believing that Donald Trump is the president of the United States. A very scary thing for the public of the United States, that we cannot honor free and fair elections. I'll end my monologue with just a couple of observations as we begin our discussion. First, we all were tired of President Trump's endless tweets, his hour, 2 hour, 3 hour press conferences, and basically saw him on television every day for 4 years, 7 days a week. This president has simply just not been visible enough. We haven't seen and heard about his accomplishments. And this may be a great challenge for the president, that he needs to change his communication strategy and be more aggressive and bold in sharing to the American people where he's had success, as the economy is actually better than it was. Unemployment is down, although worker shortages are a challenge. The American people simply don't seem to know the achievements of this president. The second thing I will say is President Biden often seems to be caught off guard. When criticized about the pullout in Afghanistan, he said, well, we thought it might happen quicker, that the Taliban would take over, but intelligence showed that the American government knew that the Taliban would take over very quickly, and they did. When criticized about signing an agreement with Australia for nuclear submarines, he said, "Oh, the French already knew about it." Well, that's not true, and that hurt our relationships with France. When lines started building up for testing, the president said in a press conference, "Well, maybe we should have ordered more tests." Once again, that doesn't exude a lot of confidence in the commander in chief. And finally, the foreign policy has been a tough thing for this president. Russia continuing to threaten invasion of Ukraine. China continuing to emphasize its stance in the world as the global superpower of the world. And, of course, disruption of democracy, not only in America, but in Sudan, in Cuba, in Tunisia, in Venezuela, in Myanmar, in all of these countries, and Hungary, all of these democratically elected governments that now have dictators leading and running their nation. My final thought of the day before we begin is that there has never been a president with more experience than Joseph R. Biden. 50 years in the United States Senate, 8 years as Vice President of the United States. He ran for president twice, in 1988 and in 2008. And both times, he did not even come close to winning the nomination. Actually, in both times he ran in the primaries, his poll numbers were at 2.5%. The third time was a charm, and he honored the wishes of his late son, Beau Biden, the Attorney General of the state of Delaware, to become the President of the United States. And he did. But now the time comes of this president to look within himself, to see that he has the strength to lead this country forward, to bring us out of this sense of turbulence back to steadier times in our nation. I think Joe Biden can do it. The scrappy man from Scranton has a lot of fight in him. And what's good to know is he likes to feel at home, as he said when he won the White House a year ago. The First Lady, Jill Biden, has actually made some changes. She's ordered the Secret Service to stay out of the private kitchen. And now the president begins his day in his bathrobe, actually, I read in the New York Times, lifting weights, doing some exercises, and then getting the note card of the schedule of his day. The favorite food in the White House is orange Gatorade, which he drinks while he talks to world leaders or his staff advisors, chocolate ice cream bars, and of course, the Delaware favorite, cheesesteaks, which he used to love from Philadelphia, has now replaced the Munster and Rye as the famous sandwich of the White House. And the final point, and I see this with my own parents, Joe Biden does not begin the day or end the day without talking to one of his 3 granddaughters. He's done this for the last 15 years, and even as President of the United States, he starts the day talking with a granddaughter and ends his day talking with a granddaughter. Well, hopefully, these young Bidens can give him the energy and experience that he needs to continue to lead our nation forward. 1 year from today, President Biden will make an announcement, most likely, of whether he will be seeking his party's nomination for president. We don't even know whether Vice President Harris will be on the ticket, as some have said that she will be asked to step down because she's been very invisible in this campaign and in this presidency, and she has made some missteps of her own on major issues. The Republicans and the nation are watching you closely, Mr. President. As an American, I want you to do well. We all do. Now, with us today to talk about the Biden report card is Mark Lee. We have others joining us, and Senator Wiley Nickel will be joining us next week, who worked for President Obama, and he's a state senator in North Carolina, and he's running for the 6th congressional seat right now, doing very well on his fundraising, leading in the polls. And I just spoke to him. He's going to try to make it next week. And of course, Jessica Holmes, former Wake County Commissioner. Well, it was a lot to get in, Mark. I did the best I could. It's hard to sum up.
You got in a whole lot. You got in a whole lot of stuff, some amazing information and all of that. And I was definitely quite impressed with all that information that you brought to us and everything. But I was thoroughly impressed and looking forward to having more of your conversation about the administration and what's going to happen in that regards. But definitely, it's an amazing things happening, and I know that you're going to be doing even more analysis. By the way, we do have the world's worst president, and right now, our good friend Trump is still ahead, and we've got some other leaders as well that are being part of the conversation, and none of them are going to take Trump. And I'm going to bring my good friend Sasha, as well as the boss Nick, who may have to do some running of things as well, since we've got a bunch of things going on in our world. So we'll bring in Nick. Well, Nick's like, nope, don't want to do it. Don't want
I'm
to do
here.
it.
I'm here. I'm here.
Good
I'm here,
morning.
Mark. I'm here.
Yep.
Yeah, and I got to listen to Steve talk about what they call in Rome the apology of
The apology.
Joe Biden. Apology. In other words, I apologize for Joe. But I don't think it's looking very good for him myself. In other words, Mark, it looks like approval ratings are bad. Prognosis is bad. I think they're going to lose heavily in the midterm election. And if the trends continue and he doesn't turn this around, he will not be a two-term president. I don't know who's going to win, but the polls I put out there have less than like 8 to 6%. I mean, that's
Wow.
pretty low. That's not even
That's-
double digit. I know it's really bad. Of course, people come back. Well, they're LinkedIn polls. They're not. Well, okay. Let's double it. Let's triple it. He still loses. It's absolutely horrible. He's got a big upswing to do. He's got a lot of work to do to
Well,
rebuild his brand, which is not really great right now.
Well, we have with us Sasha Starr,
Yep.
and I think we want to welcome Sasha Starr from Modern Investing with Sasha, and also
And he's from Canada. Maybe he's got a
yes.
different view on
But
this.
I think what we're going to do today, we're going to spend the whole hour talking about the Biden presidency, and then next week we've got Wiley Nickel coming on, other commentators, as we begin our path towards being on the Roku TV, where we're going to be bringing other political analysts and guests. But the bottom line is this: we've had successes I talked about, so we can talk about those for a few. The CARES Act, the American Rescue Plan, the infrastructure plan, the vaccination campaign, those kinds of things. We've got some challenges with foreign policy, with COVID testing, with the fact that the pandemic is still here. When he said, a year ago that, well, no, we got to the summer, he said, we're going to be free from COVID, and it's still here. And then we've got, sort of the challenges, these missteps that Nick P.O.D keeps talking about, where, we could have ordered more tests. Maybe it could have been better in Afghanistan. Oh, the French already knew about this. And time again, it's just like, pointing the finger. Meanwhile, people lose confidence. So I'm going to start with Sasha. Let's go segment by segment. So, Sasha, a year into the presidency, you and I both supported Biden, and we weren't fans of Trump. I do think he's been better than what Trump has. But it does seem to be that his approval ratings are very low, and he's just having a hard time convincing the country that he's the man should be leading the country.
I've never been a fan of Joe Biden, except that all I wanted is to Trump to lose election. And if Democrats choose Biden to do so and go on and to win election, and that actually happened, that's already some kind of a step in the right direction. However, as one grandmaster in chess said, that we are all losing to one mighty opponent. It's time. You see, Biden is getting older and older with each day. And whatever he's doing today, he will be even worse a year from now or 2 years from now, and so on.
Yes.
He would be wise just to step down. He is not capable to continue to run as president of the United States simply because of his. It's not just his age. Some people may be 90 years old. They could think clearly and articulate their thoughts and so on. Biden simply is not capable of doing that right now. And a year from now, it could become even worse. So then what to do? Because right now, even his own Democratic Party is not standing behind him. I think they're all waiting for him to go one way or another, or so on. And that's not the way to govern. He is not capable in these circumstances where everything what he's trying to do, whether it's right or wrong or halfway, it's derailed. It's being derailed. Just this, no, we're not gonna do it. Oh, this one, no, 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 it's not gonna go. So he is just incapable to govern in these circumstances. He must go.
Well, I think, yeah, and I think that we're going to talk about that because I think a year from now is when we'll probably be, looking at the results of the midterm elections. He'll have to make an announcement whether he is going to run again. I guess they could always bring the 25th Amendment up, saying that he's not fit to serve anymore and swear Kamala Harris in as the president, giving her at least a year of incumbency on the job training. Although she's had her share of missteps as well, so I don't know what you do. But Nick and Mark, what do you think about what Sasha has just said? And then let's talk
I
a little
mean,
bit about some of the challenges.
Biden's got a lot of challenges. I do agree with something you said in your earlier remarks, which is that he needs to come out with his fighting spirit and come out and try to be more of that fighting Joe that was in the Senate in the early days. But now it sounds like he's becoming more of and nothing against our boss and everything, Nick, but it sounds like he's got the more of that grandfatherly kind of vibe and not so much of the fighting vibes and all of that. So
Yeah.
that is something that he's going to have to. Excuse me.
But he's
That would
always
be
been
to
like
do
that. I
on the
mean,
air.
as Fareed Zakaria said, they always call Joe Biden the accidental president. I mean, the
Right.
only reason why he won was because of Trump and because of the COVID pandemic. Those two things brought him in. But let's face the facts, folks. I've always been a fan of Joe Biden, but he's never been the most exciting guy in the world. Okay. He's not charismatic. He doesn't have an electrifying personality. People in the Senate just knew him as Joe, a guy that you could go have a cheesesteak with, have a Gatorade with, which, by the way, is what he would drink and
Yeah.
eat when he was,
Yeah.
and chocolate ice cream bars. So it's good to know that he's brought those into the White House. And it also concerns me that he's in a bathrobe now starting the day rather than suited and booted and ready to go. That really makes you
Okay.
wonder.
But Steve, hold on a second. One of the things I was going to ask is, when it comes to charisma and presidents, we've had some very charismatic presidents. There's no doubt about that. I mean, I might not have been the biggest fan, and I know he's on our list and everything of Reagan in terms of some of his policies and in terms of even like his war on drugs that Nancy and him were both behind. It had some impact on the African American community, and I might not have been the biggest fan of some other people that I may add in that charisma category, including definitely Kennedy and including Clinton, and of course, I would even add that Trump has some charisma as well. But and Nick, I'd love to hear what you got to think about this. And I know it's not part of what this particular show is, but we've had some very boring presidents. We've had some presidents that weren't exactly measuring that great in the charisma. Of course, this was before the television
I was
age
gonna
and
say,
before the radio age and all of that. So, but
you're in
even
a whole
huh?
different world.
Right.
Mark, they were in a whole different world than they are today. Joe, unfortunately, is one and done, baby. And because most people didn't vote for him, they voted against Trump. And that's the realities of the situation. And he's not going to be able to rehabilitate. And I agree with Sasha. Here's the problem. I know that as I get older. When you get older, I stopped playing competitive tournament chess because Sasha, I get tired after 3 days of 8-hour games. I mean, you just can't physically do it. Okay, but he's not doing that. He's trying to run the world's largest economy, the biggest military, and he's facing time which is not going to work on his side. It's not like when I was 20, I got better because and when I was in my teens, you could always get better. You could get 20 and 30, get more energy, blah, blah, blah. But that's not where he's at. He's in 70, looking at 80, 82. And in my experience working with the 80-year-olds, it's tough. I mean, life gets tough for them. I wish there were odds in Vegas. I mean, I would be all in that he will not be reelected. Not be reelected. He has no chance.
I don't think he's going to run again. I think that's
Well,
the
I mean, that would
strategy
be the best. That
Shouldn't.
would be the best thing, Steve. And the real problem that you have in your party, which I'm tentatively a member of, is you got to find a replacement. And as you're sifting through the sands of the Democratic Party, you're finding a lot of problems. That's the reason you should run for a higher office.
But let me
Well,
throw two
Because
names out.
the
Other
only
than
reason
Steve.
you should run for a higher office, Steve, you have no competition in that
Yeah,
party.
let me throw out two names other
well,
than
I think it's
Steve
I
Rao, who
think
I
that,
agree should be
well,
the president, and I'm going to
well,
vote for him
there may
in
be some.
2060 or something like that, because that's
I
what he
may
said
be
he's going to run
I may
Well,
be
and all of
making
that.
some
But
announcements.
Steve,
let
We
me
may
Steve
be
throw out
needs
making
to
two
step
names.
to the plate, baby. Steve needs to
well,
step to the plate.
we
You
are going
know,
to be making some announcements soon about my
yeah,
future. So that's
Yeah,
exciting.
well,
yeah.
But real quickly,
Get out of the councilman
oh
stuff.
yeah,
but
absolutely.
just
We
really
will be.
quickly, Steve, what do you think? And this is for everybody on the panel. What do you think about the possibility you mentioned it earlier of Kamala running, and she does have some folks that are not pleased with her stances, even in the criminal justice system when she was over there in California. I've actually got some folks that know, and they think that he could have been a good candidate, but he might have lost his luster. And some people even compared him to Obama, Cory Booker, that was up in New Jersey. But I don't know that he's got the kind of appeal that is needed. And then I know some people in the activist community that are saying that he is got some, maybe some
Okay.
skeletons, maybe some other things that happened while he was in office that may not be that great for him and everything, and that he's not the most charismatic person himself and everything. But what do you think about those two?
Mark,
And then my other question is, what about a Indian battle for the presidency? Because it could be Nikki, who I think has some Indian heritage, against Kamala, who definitely has some Indian heritage. So
Well,
Mark, I honestly think that some of the people you get on. Oh, I was watching the Black Business Expo yesterday. You had Dr.
yes.
Williams on, or McWilliams. She was really, really good. And Barbara Smith is really, really good. You got people that are really good in front of a camera, much better than Kamala Harris. She's just
well,
not
I
that
think
good.
let me.
She'll get blown away. Seriously, but the Republicans will all vote against her, and she's not going to win that middle pack. You better get, like I said, you better get somebody good. And the other problem, sexism, racism exists in this country. I mean, you can say what you like, okay? It is what it is. So the thing is, and sexism may be worse than racism. We elected Obama, but threw Hillary under the bus. The minute
Yeah,
you're
that's
a
true.
woman, it really is difficult in the United States. So
Wait a
I
minute.
think she, I think
Hold
she's
on a
got a
second. Time out.
lot of issues.
I need this to be an announcement though, because
What?
according to
You're
our
going to run?
person that's on the panel and everything, Adam says that sometimes that systematic racism doesn't exist, and that he finds it
I know everybody
shocking and
believes
all
in
of that.
I dream
Well,
the impossible
well,
dream. I mean,
yeah.
everybody. Hey, Mark, everybody's entitled to their delusional visions of America. You can have your delusions, okay? And I've listened to Shaquille and his delusions. Adam has his delusions, but that's not the reality. And if anybody believes that, all you have to do is get into this one profession I've been in for 37 years: sales. Okay, sales is really, really hard. Because the thing is, unfortunately, it's not like you have a job, people are going to pay you. You've got to actually get somebody to believe in you. And unfortunately, a lot of people are racist and sexist, and you're not going to win. And I've seen that for, 37 years. And people who don't believe it, I go look at the studies on it. I mean, it does exist in this country. And then when he was defending, what was it, Australia? Okay, I got tons of things from my favorite website that hates us. Understanding China. Understanding China, they all hate us. They think we're all idiots and jerks. And they point out some very correct things. One was the Australians basically shooting down the Aborigines. I didn't
Right.
even know that. That was not part of the
Yes.
history that I
No.
was told.
No.
Mark, okay. Shaquille never brings it up.
No,
When he
I
gets
brought it up
back
to him a
here,
couple of times. He
okay,
kind of
well, what
sidesteps that
I know
issue.
you like sidesteps. Well, the thing is, no sidestepping here, baby. Okay, I'm gonna say, look, how do you deal with that? How can you say that it doesn't exist? It does. I mean, it's reality of sales. It's so bad that in New York they're not only divided racially, they're divided ethnically.
Hmm.
If you're not, if you have an Italian name, they do business with you. If you have a Jewish name, they do business with you. If you don't, they won't. And it's more the older generation, the younger generation. As you get older and older and older, they're more ethnically divided
Well,
than they are younger, and they keep it real quiet. So it's almost like, shh, don't tell anybody. Come
but
on,
don't you think,
you
real
know.
quickly? I want to take a section before we
But
go to the
it's
next.
called
So, I,
Democratic Party delusions. Is
other
really what it is.
candidates who have been mentioned for the White House are, believe it or not, the governor of North Carolina, Roy Cooper,
He's
who
actually
has
pretty good.
been he's been a good governor of the
Yeah.
state. Doesn't have the foreign policy experience, but was attorney general before that, a state senator. North Carolina is the eighth largest state. He could help win the South.
Hmm.
He's very competent, has a lot of experience, having been a governor for 8 years. Maybe Cooper could either be vice president or president. Don't know if there are others out there. Not a lot of Democratic
Democrats.
governors left in the United States.
Oh, you
Um,
have Gary
you know,
Newsom over in California. You
Amy
want to bring?
Klobuchar might be good.
She would be good, but again, the
Um,
thing is, I think you're going to be facing is a very sexist opposition in the U.S.
Tim Kaine from Virginia,
Tim
possibly.
Tim Kaine's probably history.
Mark
Toast.
Warner from
Toast.
Virginia. Um,
Okay.
but Mark
Toast.
Warner
Toast.
was the founder of Nextel, and is a
You know.
billionaire and a venture capitalist.
Oh,
But I don't know.
possibility then, because he
Yeah,
can buy a lot of votes.
yeah,
Hey,
Free Mark
or
Warner.
maybe Elon Musk or Mark Cuban will run.
Hey, actually, you know what? The thing is, Mark Cuban was thinking about it seriously, just like Michael Bloomberg. As long as they're coached properly. Remember, these guys have big egos. Bloomberg blew it because he didn't get coached on debate. And the thing is, he doesn't have, even though he owns a media company, Mark, he doesn't have a lot of media experience,
No,
which
not at all.
Steve is getting right now as people, you get into scrums all the time. So he's kind of like getting it. Bloomberg didn't have that. Bloomberg was a one-way street. Very smart, very intelligent, very wealthy, but man, in debate, he had no experience at all, and he just got slaughtered by Elizabeth Warren. I mean,
So,
she went
but the president had. Let's go before we end this segment. The president has had some successes. I mean, first of all, the vaccination campaign was a success. I mean, he basically got 65% of the country vaccinated. Now he's ordered free at home COVID tests now, which you can
or you could say it was
away.
a failure. He had
Um,
more than 30% that weren't vaccinated.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's the other argument you made. But
so
what about these other things like the infrastructure bill?
I
Don't
think
you
the
think that
biggest
was a
success he's had
success?
biggest success today, Steve, was the infrastructure bill. In other words, that was probably one of his biggest success. But of course, they had bipartisan support on that, and I thought that was probably the biggest thing he's done so far. Unfortunately, the American public is, what have you done for me lately? And what sort of charisma do you have? And charisma, he gets what, a C, maybe a D? So he's not going to win on that side. Now, what have you done for me lately? Well, his media team is horrible. Elon Musk, what he should do is call Elon and say, can I hire your media team and your PR people? Because they're much better than his. And push his agenda through social media and media. Trump is better than him at media. And Trump's not even the president. I mean, this is ridiculous. So he is really lagging on his media presence big time.
You see, these days, in my opinion, the president, whoever will be elected the president, first of all, he must love himself. He must love to be upfront on media, on Twitter, on Facebook, everywhere, every moment.
Right.
Oh,
I agree.
okay, if it's not Trump, okay, Biden. Okay, here's Biden. Biden says this. Biden said that. Biden went there. Biden met somebody.
You're
He
right.
must be thriving.
He has to be like Xi Jinping. Xi Jinping in China is everywhere. Mao did the same thing. He was
did a
everywhere.
2-hour press conference yesterday for the first time in a long time.
Oh, that's
2-hour
great.
press conference, but
And it was a disaster.
Yeah, it wasn't. So I think moving forward, and we're going to get into some international affairs. We're going to come back with Senator Nickel next week, who actually worked with President Obama on the advance team and worked with Biden when he was vice president. But what do each of you think? And I'll get it started. What can be done to help him in his presidency? Would it be a reshuffling of his staff? Some have asked for, Ron Klain and others whom he's loyal to. Steve Ricchetti, they've been there for many, many years. Does he need to shift out his administration? Does he need to maybe get more communications person? Maybe that's the problem. Just getting more visible. Obviously, it's not happening now with the team he has in place. So, what are your opinions, folks, about is this salvageable, and what are the options?
He's old school, Mark. I mean, Steve, he's just old school. And the thing is, he needs to be new school. I mean, the first thing he needs to do is bring in names. Like, this is where Trump was brilliant in. I mean, he brought in the former CEO of Exxon Mobil. He brought in these billionaire names, even though I didn't like any of them. It didn't matter. He brought in names, and he kept pushing his agenda forward to the public. Now, we're talking about Mark Cuban. Mark Cuban is great in front of a camera. The guy has learned a lot. Why isn't he selected for like Department of Commerce? Okay, bring in a name, a big hitter. If you're going to have a football team, what do you do? Do you recruit 5-star athletes or 3-star athletes or 2 stars that you just happen to be friends with? Well, Joe is running an old school campaign. He's recruiting 2-star athletes, if any, because he's friends with them, rather than a 5-star like Mark Cuban. Mark Cuban should be on the list. There are some good people out there. Where's Blumberg? He needs to bring in some really good hitters if he's going to turn this around. Here's my belief: he will not do it. He will not turn around. He's old school. Goodbye. He'll be gone in about 2 years. The only problem is I don't know who's going to replace him.
Yeah, I don't know who's going to replace him either. And I do see what you're saying about the old school campaign. I did have a question that I was curious about for actually Sasha, because I'm hearing that a lot of people are saying that we definitely are in the middle of this pandemic. The pandemic helped a lot of businesses, and now some of those businesses that were helped by the pandemic are not doing as well. And some of the analysis that I've been hearing is that people are getting a little bit more comfortable. So therefore, some of those products that were doing really well because of home being home businesses are now taking a stock tumble. And what they're pointing to is Peloton, which a lot of people were using as an exercise tool, Netflix, because a lot of people were watching Netflix on TV, and Zoom video. I don't know what they said about the stock for StreamYard, as well as DocuSign. So is the pandemic boom over, and are companies that were in business to and targeting toward staying at home, are they not going to do as well? Because apparently they did quite well, and investors loved them back in 2020 and 2021, but not loving them as much now. But I was just wondering your thoughts and whether folks still needed to invest in these companies, or are the analysis people, like on some of the analysis programs that I've been watching, correct that those businesses had their moment in the sun is done, just like you said cryptocurrency is done as well. And I've heard people say the same thing about that as well.
Well, the stock market sentiment today is very different from 1 year ago or most of the last year. Inflation is definitely rearing its ugly head. And so what's happened is that investors are getting away from all this so-called the pandemic stocks, including, of course, Netflix is a big one, the Zoom, the others that you mentioned, Peloton. Peloton even stopped production of its hardware because they're not takers, I guess. So they will be history very soon. They're not going to survive much longer. Although their stock is down big time, probably 80% maybe, if not more. But they will go down to zero because their business model is not sustainable. They will be, or maybe they will be taken over by somebody else in that business. Netflix is not doing that great because they now believe that their growth will come from Asia, not from the United States. Because in the United States you already have as many consumers as it is possible. I would like to add just before I finish about this discussion about the president, what he should done to do better, be more successful, or so on. It's an old story about the owner of the brothel. He went complaining that his business is not doing so well, so he's now ordering a new furniture. And what else he should do to increase his business? And the answer was, you change the girls, not furniture. So same thing with Biden. You just change the guy. That's all what you need to do, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just well, real quickly, we're going to continue these conversations, but a couple of breaking news we didn't talk about. First of all, a shout out and a prayer for the family of Meatloaf. I can't believe he died, and his songs were ringing in my ears today. Um, he's another famous music icon dead. Um, the other big thing we talked about cryptocurrency. The mayor of New York City, Eric Adams, his first paycheck he's converted to cryptocurrency. I found that to be interesting. I don't know if you all knew that or not, but the new mayor.
The sucker is born every minute. Don't forget that.
So that good for Eric Adams, the mayor of New York City. The Supreme Court, it looks like it's sticking its guns on upholding the Texas abortion law. My theory is, once again, the Supreme Court, except for John Roberts, it looks like those other three Republican appointed justices are really staying hard line in terms of just sticking to, being sort of a pro-life court, upholding the state decisions on voting. So that's going to be interesting to see what happens there. And of course, we're waiting in North Carolina on what the state Supreme Court will do with our maps. But it does look like they're going to be ordering new maps. And they pushed the primaries, which had been in March, to May, and now they pushed them to June. So that's going to be interesting. And then Russia and United States ambassadors are meeting again with Tony Blinken uh, to talk about the situation in Ukraine. So lots of things going on as we prepare for the Winter Olympics, which will be here in a few weeks. Looking forward to some Jamaican bobsledding.
Hey, Jamaican bobsled sounds like a great thing. By the way, Nick, are we going to do a Winter Olympics coverage at all? Because I
I
know we
think we
did the
should.
Summer Olympics coverage, and
Yeah,
Winter Olympics would be a great thing for us to do as
yeah.
well. If we can get our
Jackie
people
and Ada.
involved, including
Yeah,
some people involved with the Winter Olympics. Because I did meet some Winter Olympic athletes and all of that.
right. Yeah, I
So
think we're
that
gonna
would be great if we
we're
could
gonna
get
run
that
some
going, and I can
we're gonna
definitely
some run
help
some
in
Winter
that
Olympics.
spot and everything. One thing that I was going to mention about icons, we did lose an icon on Tuesday as well, an icon in the fashion industry, and he's actually here from Durham. But that was Andre Leon Talley, who was the Vogue editor and
Yeah, Tally. Yeah,
very much involved in the fashion industry and advocate for both the LGBT community as well as the African American community, and actually, like I said, a graduate of Hillside, one of our historical Black high schools here in this area. At least that was what it was historically, and all of that. But
yeah.
definitely, he was a charismatic character. Nick, you may not know this, but I did an event with him many years ago when I was tied to the Durham Arts Council, and the city
Wow.
was honoring him. So they actually did it at American Tobacco. I want to say that they had a TV anchor do the inside part, and I did some of the outside emceeing. But he was definitely very much of a charismatic
Character.
character, and
You're six
definitely
foot
an
six.
interesting character.
Hey, come on, Mark. You can't miss him. He was 6'6", right?
Exactly.
He was a big guy. I
Yep.
mean, hard to miss. Yeah, I never met him or heard about him until, of course, he passed away. But he looked to be a very charismatic person. In other
Oh, yeah.
words, yeah, he's the type of person that the Democratic Party's got to find to run for higher office.
Yes.
And right now, they are not finding him. At least I don't see anybody on the horizon. Cooper wouldn't be bad, by the way. He's a chance. Newsom will be very polarizing, but I wouldn't be surprised if he throws his hat in. I wouldn't be surprised if Cooper throws his hat in also, just to test the waters and see what happens. But I don't think Joe's the answer. What the real problem that Joe's facing right now is our friends over in Russia and Ukraine. Sasha, maybe give us a little insight. What's going on there? I'm looking for the bomb shelter. Here it is. Should I be building a bomb shelter right now, or what's going on here?
Actually, if it would be just an Ukrainian problem, you wouldn't worry about the shelter because Ukraine is just too far from you. But the problem is not Ukraine. And in fact, I've looked at a couple of Russian talk shows and analysis yesterday. They don't need Ukraine. Absolutely. In fact, because it's expected that they will attack Ukraine, that's exactly the reason why they're not going to do it. They
really?
need
Okay.
West. They need US, not Ukraine.
Yeah, but what does Russia need from us? I mean, what is it that
They
want?
want you to A, respect Russia, B,
Right.
be obedient, stop fighting, remove all the sanctions, and just be a nice, good, civilized boys.
I mean, a nice, good,
Do
civilized peasant. Yes.
Well, that's what they're fighting for. They will never get what they want.
Yeah.
It sometimes happens in life. You badly want something, but you just can't get it.
Right.
Same
Yeah.
thing is Russia. It just seems to me like if you're talking about Joe Biden, let's say there is a beautiful blonde, 25 years old, and he really wants it, but he can't have her for various reasons. That's exactly what's happened with Russia. Their stock market went down. I just said about it yesterday. In one day, it collapsed 15%.
Yeah. Well, I called off my vacation again to St. Petersburg and Moscow because I don't want to go in a country where they hate us. I mean, it's just not really my idea, even though I do like going there. It's because they have great artwork and stuff, but at
And
the
you
same
could-
time,
so
you know, it just doesn't feel very comfortable. Hi, I'm an American.
Yes, it's a different proposition to go there as a tourist and enjoy yourself and look at all those beauties of St. Petersburg or Moscow. But it's a different proposition when you are opposing. And I saw a very interesting press conference of Lavrov, their foreign minister, and a German young lady who just happened to become a foreign minister for Germany. And Lavrov was so deeply disappointed that they sent a youngster, actually. He thought that like she's a trainee or like the what's your what was in
An
position of
intern?
Monica Lewinsky? Yeah, intern.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
So
Yeah,
she was
Mollis was an intern, right?
yeah, she was an intern essentially, right? But Lavrov was so deeply disappointed. But she was stern and she was aggressive, and she said, "If you don't do this, we'll do that, and if you do that, we'll do that." And she was like bombastic him. I was surprised that they showed it on Russian television.
Oh, really? Wow. Well,
It's
the thing is, see, I think there should be some sort of committee to restore Russian-American relationship, and this is something that Joe Biden, if he was a leader, would promote. In other words, let's create a committee and restore U.S. and Russian relationship. But no, that's not what they're going to do. They're going to be playing. They're going to be both pounding their chest, and it's
Yeah,
just
but
ridiculous.
you see, the problem is that Russia put an ultimatum to U.S. and all the Western countries,
Yeah.
asking for certain things. Furthermore, they said that this is a complex deal. They cannot choose, okay, we agree with this and with this, but not with that. It has to go all
Yeah,
in.
it's all or nothing.
all
Well,
in.
that's the reason you put a committee together
It's
Yeah.
incredible.
and negotiate it, because everything's negotiable. You know that, Sasha. If
On
you have a
Monday,
committee, they'll negotiate it.
my monologue is going to be on Russia, Ukraine, and I want to start with some analysis. I'm researching this weekend about that.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is, and I'll mention it again on Monday, but Putin has described the dissolve of the Soviet Union as one of the greatest geopolitical disasters in the history of his
Well,
nation.
yeah.
So,
Well,
you know.
this is the reason you need a committee together. Maybe they need to get a strong cup of coffee and realize that no one gives a rat's rear except him about
Well,
Ukraine and all the I'm losing control, other stuff. Get a committee together and start working out the issues, because the issues are international issues, and they're issues. I'm sure there's room for negotiation if they get good negotiators in a room and stop this crazy brinksmanship with their engagement.
First of all, I would like to mention there was far greater disaster for Russia than the dissolution of Soviet Union. It was occupation of Russia by Mongols and Tatars
Yeah, there you go. Good
in
point.
13th
Right.
century.
Yeah, that
was broke Russia for over 200 years.
There you
That's
go.
why Russia was never a civilized European country. Although it's located in Europe, most of the population lives in Europe.
Yeah.
But it's not a European country. It's not European civilization. They have different religions. It's all started with the Mongols.
But look at what Xi Jinping is doing. And see, this is the thing that I keep harping on. I mean, China is eating our lunch, and Russia's lunch too, basically. They don't even know it. Xi Jinping already is building bridges between him and India, where they've done 125 billion in trade this year. And then, even though they have their skirmishes up in the mountains, in other words, who owns the empty mountains? I mean, who cares? But the thing is, he's building also bridges with Russia, okay, where in the meantime, the U.S. isn't building strong bridges with India, isn't building strong bridges with Russia. Of course, there's a lot of that to do with Donald Trump thumbing his nose at all our European allies. I mean, if you look at our foreign policy, it's a disaster. I mean, it's horrible. And I hate to say it, Steve, your friend Biden isn't much better than Trump. He hasn't, if you ask me, what has he done on the foreign front to improve relationships with Russia and China and India?
Well,
Okay, fill
yes.
in the blanks, buddy. Fill in the
And
blanks.
next week we're
Well,
going to be
and
hopefully.
Nick, hold on a second. I got to ask y'all two things because I've been watching and listening while doing multiple things and everything.
multitasking.
But one is coming to Russia and everything, Sasha let me know that even if we have a nuclear war, you don't have to build a bomb shelter because many of us will survive and it'll be all right because we're now not going to disappear in a nuclear war. I think that's what Sasha told me on the last couple
Not
of times
everybody.
that we've been on the show. Right, Sasha? I did get that right, correct?
Good. Something to look forward to.
That's the latest discoveries of Russian scientists and politicians, where they're now saying that it's not true that all mankind will cease to exist,
Just
because it's no longer the time when both sides had 65,000 nuclear warheads.
Yeah.
It's today only a fraction of that, say 20,000, right? 20,000 is more than enough to kill everything too. But you see, 65 would kill everything alive 8 times, right? So the 20,000 will kill it only, say, 3.5 times. So does that make survival aspects are much greater? Probably not. But anyway, that's a new thinking too. So I think it's for the sort of consumption of the Russian citizens, so they would not be so scared if indeed nuclear exchange of some kind will actually happen. And Ukraine, apparently, they just have to understand that the Russians don't need Ukraine. It's just a liability, because if they will take over Ukraine, okay, they took over some territories in Ukraine and in Georgia, so they have to feed these people, they have to provide all jobs and materials and money and food and shelters and everything else. So Ukraine is nothing but liability for Russia. They don't need that, yet another liability. But what they need, they want to rest.
Well, this is a good, yeah, exactly. And I think that may be a good topic for next week's show on just foreign policy in the United States. I will be on Sirius XM tomorrow on the Urban View channel on Inside the Issues with Dr. Wilmer Leon. And he asked me some tough questions about foreign policy, but it led me to believe that I think there's clearly a lack of defined focus in our foreign policy. So when you look at the Southern Hemisphere, we've got dictators in there that are saying socialism works. I'm putting food on the table. I'm helping the hungry. I'm helping the homeless. Why is that? Why can I not be a socialist dictator that was democratically elected? And the United States is sort of staying quiet on that, right? We're not doing a lot on China. We're not doing a lot on Cuba. We're not really kicking on Russia.
And what we're
And-
doing
and
is
so-
what we're doing is horrible too. I mean, the thing is, this whole thing about pulling diplomats out of the Olympics, and this is from Joe Biden, because they're trying to simulate the Jaegers or something like that. In other words, we're trying to thumb our moral nose out. And boy, I'm getting a lot of pushback from the Chinese saying, dude, you got a lot of problems in your own house. And you know what? They're right. Okay. And so the thing is, our foreign policy.
Wait a minute, Nick. You mean that we don't have political prisoners too?
Yeah, we do. That's the
I
problem.
know we do.
That's the problem, Mark. We put so many people in jail for like smoking marijuana for life, and we're trying to get them out. We have a whole program on that, and we do all sorts of garbage here, as you know, in our criminal justice system.
Right.
Yet, and this is the part of the Biden administration big mistake, and you can add a lot to this list. Okay, he goes, well, we're not going to send diplomats to China. We're going to thumb China. Why are you doing this? When here's a person who's actually a great leader, Xi Jinping. Okay, like him or hate him, this guy has really done well for his country. In other words,
But you say he's a great leader, but don't they have a major economic problem there in their area?
Oh, they
too?
have
I keep
minor
thinking that
economic
they have that whole
No, they have that real
Evergrande
estate.
or whatever that development complex was that's going on.
They have minor problems, but if you look overall in terms of his strategy, his GDP growth of 8%, okay, that's pretty impressive. Okay, lifting a lot of people out of poverty, that's pretty impressive. Keeping China out of wars, that's pretty impressive. He'd be a great president for the United States. We should hire him, bring him over here, pay him a lot of money, and tell China to go find another leader. Okay, that's how good this guy really is. He's much better than Putin, much better than Joe Biden. I hate to say it, that if you ranked him, he'd be number one on my list if I was an executive search committee hiring somebody.
And
He'd be number one.
Nick, look at Chinese infrastructures, their airports.
Oh, they've been
railways.
I go to Understanding China, and the thing is, they're showing me their train system, okay, and how great it is. And they're right. And our train system sucks. Now, Joe may be fixing it with this new infrastructure bill,
Yeah, I think he's
hopefully.
trying to fix the
But
train
as we
system.
stand today,
Yeah, but
they are correct.
and yes, but the question is execution. And I
Yeah.
think that this is an important part that I've tried to bring on the show is that it's not just the dollars that you
Sure.
spend, it's
Well,
how
well,
quickly.
you're right. Will we be able to execute it here? You're right, Steve.
I mean, no, during the New Deal when Roosevelt was president,
Mhm.
in 4 years, he modernized, built 1,000 airports, provided electricity to every rural city in America, and he did it with 3 million people that worked for the Progress Administration, which was led by Harold Ickes. And even the George Washington Bridge was completed under budget
Yeah.
a year ahead of time. Today, to do 1 mile of subway in New York costs $7 billion and still doesn't get done. We've been talking about trains in Wake County, where Nick and I live, or where Mark
Yeah.
lives in
Not
Durham.
done.
We've been talking about it for decades.
We're still doing feasibility
Okay,
studies.
I know, I understand that. I've been involved in that when I was working for the city attorney's office in Miami Beach. We spent $10 million in studies and didn't do anything. That's typical of government. Okay,
Yeah.
and this is where China is eating our lunch, and the U.S. is asleep at the wheel. I mean, the thing is, so they show me pictures of what they're doing. I haven't been over there yet, but it's very impressive. They have bigger buildings, faster train systems, a faster growing economy than we are. We are going
But they
to
can,
become
but they can
number
plow
2.
through. But they can
But
plow through
US is
villages.
good
They can
at
plow through
the
villages.
feasibility study.
What are we good at? Feasibility.
Feasibility
Feasibility
study.
study.
That's where the money is. Come on.
That's right.
Innovation is our
Don't
strength.
bother, don't
Research.
bother,
We're still,
don't bother to
we're
build
still
anything. Just create a feasibility study.
the United
Consultants
States.
make a whole lot of money off of feasibility studies. They make a whole lot of
Right.
money off of that whole
Don't
field
build
and everything.
trains.
But I did have a question for Sasha, which is we talked about some bad presidents, including the current one, because we're saying that Biden's in trouble. I know you're not a big fan of your own Canadian, I think it's prime minister, not president and everything. But which one is worse? Maybe I'll make that a survey. But in your own opinion, which one is worse, Biden or the person that's running your country? 'Cause I know you're not a big fan of
who's
him
running
either.
Canada right
I
now?
think Biden is worse, unfortunately. I
Is that
must say.
Trudeau? Is he running Canada right now?
You see, prime minister in Canada doesn't have nearly as much power and as president of the United States. So Trudeau is insulated from public anger by various ministers and so on. And apparently, whatever he's doing, there is no much difference whether he will be brilliant, very good, just so good, or even horrible. There is very little he can do actually to change it.
Hey, Mark, maybe you should pull out who's the best world leader. Put Xi Jinping, Putin, Biden, and Trudeau, and see what the votes are. I think this would be very interesting.
This is going to be an interesting one. So what did we say? We said Biden, Trudeau.
Biden, Trudeau, Putin, and Xi Jinping.
Okay.
Xi Jinping. Okay. Put that poll out on LinkedIn and say who is the best leader in the world today. I would be very curious to see what happened. I said, my opinion, it would be Xi Jinping would beat all of them, but
By far.
By far. But I would like to see what the rest of the
Sure.
world thinks,
Yeah.
you know, and what all the people on LinkedIn, which really is represent mainly of Americans, and see what they think. You know, I mean, it would be a very interesting poll. You know.
Well, we got a few more minutes left, and then I'll begin my closeout today with some interesting observations. I think you'll like my final look. It's not really the jab. We do hope Shaquille Latimer comes back on. We miss him. He must be down under. And of course, Australian Open is going on without Djokovic. And of course, rumors are that the French Open will not be allowing Djokovic to play. So we'll see whether he will be able to break the all-time record. Of course, you've got Zverev, very hungry for his first major, and of course Medvedev, who is fearless and wants to win one more.
What about Rafael
for Russia.
Nadal? Give the old
And
people.
Nadal.
Yeah, Rafael still got a shot. But Nick, you didn't hear the news and everything? I've decided that that's why we haven't seen Shaquille. He's going to be he's going to be the ringer candidate over there. So he's going to be the ringer tennis player that's going to play in the Australian Open. So we're going to be looking for Shaquille to appear in the Australian Open.
No, I heard he's on a casino cruise. That's the reason I haven't heard from him. He's disconnected on an ocean ship, you know, where his Wi-Fi isn't very good.
Oh, he's traveling. Okay.
Yeah, he's traveling, and the thing is, his casino cruise, throwing the dice, you know, baby, or whatever they do, they gamble, you know.
Try Lady Luck.
Yeah, he's playing with Lady Luck right now. But yeah, I mean, that thing is, like I said, I think you're going to find it very interesting. I would love to see the results of that poll, Mark.
I will
Because
definitely put that one out there
I'm
this
just
weekend.
really curious, and it'll be really good for our followers in Lithuania, Ukraine. By the way, we do beam into Lithuania and Ukraine right now. I got and to watch your chess program too, Sasha. I got a lot of responses back from
Very
that.
good.
I just don't know how to forward all these responses to you from your newly found fan club in chess. Okay, but I get a lot of responses on the Facebook group pages relating to the chess and also on the investment show. I think that's quite interesting. So, but we'll just have to see what the international
And
audience
we have
has
a
to say
show
about it.
coming airing on next week live. I believe it's on Tuesday. It's a Tuesday night. We have a show airing live on Tuesday from Dubai. So yes,
Oh, we
Renee
do have
Noor will be doing her
Dubai?
show live from Dubai.
Oh, really? Wow.
Mhm.
Well, that's pretty
Wonderful.
cool.
Wonderful.
Yeah. I'd like to be able to see that for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Dubai is a happening city, and Al Jazeera takes almost all of our programs. So
Well,
They will get it live.
as I begin my closeout, a couple of breaking announcements. One, tomorrow I will be on my first national radio appearance, Sirius XM with Dr. Wilmer Leon on the Urban View, channel 126 at 11 a.m., talking about the decay of American democracy and other issues. Very interesting. My first national test, a bit harder than I thought. He said I passed and I will be asked to come back, but it was a tough interview. Also, easier to interview when you see someone. And this time I didn't have his video on the Zoom, and I found it to be a little bit harder. But that'll be tomorrow at 11 a.m. The other thing is, I have now become an op ed writer for WRL TechWire. So every now and then on World Edition, I'll be opening up or closing out with my monologues. And this next week, we'll be having Jeremy Robbins from the New American Economy, now the American Immigration Council. So my monologue will be based on H-1B skilled immigrants and whether they can help us fight the worker shortages we're dealing with during the pandemic. Stay tuned for more of those blogs, which you can get on WRL TechWire in the United States, around the world. We get about 1 million views a week. Very exciting that they have asked me to write once a week. This will be my second blog in 2 weeks, and try and do one every week, although it's challenging. And now for my final look. First of all, I just want to say that my advice to President Biden is, as we begin looking at beginning his second year of the presidency, and we're preparing for the NFL playoffs tomorrow, remember you are the quarterback, and a quarterback must throw the ball with confidence, just like Tom Brady does to Gronk when we watched him at the Patriots, now the Buccaneers. It's about exuding that confidence with your team. And the bottom line is that you are the president, you are calling the plays, and I think you still have a chance to put points on the board. Remember that with each first down achievement you have, you must convey that to the American people. Right now, I would say it's third and long, but you have a chance to score a first down. That's what the game is all about. It's a game of inches, and every inch that you gain is an advancement for the American people. My final look is talking about a North Carolinian leader that we don't hear often of. I actually think he may be a good candidate for president. His name is Dr. Nito Queben. I had the honor of meeting him yesterday at High Point University. He is the highest paid college president in North Carolina. And when you see what he has done since 2005, when he became the president of High Point University, it is unbelievable. High Point is the furniture town in North Carolina. When he became the president of High Point, it was 92 acres. He has overseen the expansion of High Point University to 592 acres, and their brand is a life skills university. Nito Queben is a Jordanian American businessman. He built much of his fortune as a trainer and a motivational speaker. I actually heard him speak 20 years ago at the American Society for Training and Development Conference. He's transformed High Point, a private university, to be a place where you can get life skills. Often on the campus, which remained open pretty much during the entire COVID pandemic, he teaches his business students on how to have business lunches, how to interact with others, on the job life skills training, even while you're in the class. He challenged us at the audience yesterday when he spoke at High Point University that, businesses must always learn how to survive and thrive, even from what we would get as a common cold, and that his entire career has been about bringing people together. Google or look at High Point University. It's an amazing story of what can happen when you come together with great vision, and that nothing comes without risk. Currently, High Point University is looking at investing over $100 million to build a dental school, and their basketball stadium actually is as nice, believe it or not, as NC State Stadium or any other major basketball stadium that I have seen, which is in fact in the Nito Queben Conference Center. We might try to bring him on our show if we can ever be so lucky. But I would look at High Point University as Dr. Queben told me when I said, well, Dr. Queben, we may not have something as nice as this in Raleigh, although we have NC State. He looked at me and said, Steve, isn't it nice to have your own Shangri-La in High Point? And as High Point University's president, my friends, he definitely is sitting on a great Shangri-La in the great state of North Carolina. From our family to yours, thank you all so much for being with us on World Edition. We had a great discussion of 1 year of Joe Biden as president, and now the second year begins. Next week, we've got Jeremy Robbins on Thursday. We've got Swadesh Chatterjee on Wednesday, hopefully, to talk about India Republic Day. Be safe wherever you are. May the light and love of your hearts always lift you out of the darkness. Thank you. Talk to you next week.